First contact. The tiny alien. Hiding in the crate, Jake was alone inside the old cargo ship named Orion Drift. The engines hummed low, and outside the window, stars moved slowly through space. He was just a ship mechanic, not a soldier, not a hero. His job was simple: transport scrap and tools from one mining planet to another. Quiet. Safe. Or so he thought. While cleaning out the back storage bay, Jake heard a strange noise. It was soft, like scratching. At first, he thought it was just a broken wire. But then he heard it again, this time louder, coming from one of the sealed metal crates. He froze. Crates weren't supposed to move. Jake grabbed a scanner. The screen blinked. Unidentified life form detected. His heart began to race. He took a slow step toward the crate and knelt beside it. The box was small, labeled "Scrap Do Not Open." He reached out and slowly unlatched the lock. Click. The lid creaked open. What he saw inside made him blink twice. It wasn't a tool. It wasn't a creature. It was a tiny woman, no taller than 6 inches. She had blue skin, silver hair, and glowing purple eyes. Her body shook as she pressed herself into the corner of the crate, clutching a piece of soft cloth like a shield. And then she spoke, her voice tiny, terrified, and trembling. "Please, don't eat me, human." Jake's mouth dropped open. "What?" She raised her hands over her head as if to protect herself. "I don't want to die. Please, I'll be quiet." Jake slowly sat back. He had no idea what to say. Hey, I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. "I don't eat people. I definitely don't eat tiny alien women." She peeked at him from behind her cloth. Her eyes studied his face like he might turn into a monster any second. "You're not one of them," she whispered. "One of who?" She didn't answer. She just hugged the cloth tighter. Jake sighed and sat on the floor. "Okay, let's try this again. I'm Jake. I'm a mechanic. You're on my ship." She blinked slowly. I didn't mean to sneak in. I was running. I didn't know where else to go." "Running from what?" Jake asked. She looked down. "Bad things. Bad people." Jake noticed how her tiny arms were covered in small cuts, and her legs looked weak. She hadn't eaten in days. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "I'm just hungry," she said. He stood up. "Wait here." He walked to the kitchen station and came back with a small tray of soft breadcrumbs, fruit jelly, and a water dropper. She stared at the food like it was treasure. Carefully, she stepped out of the crate, legs shaking. She reached the tray and tasted a bit of the jelly. Her eyes widened. "It's sweet." Jake smiled. "Yeah, it's not poison." She took more bites, faster now. Her body began to calm. Color returned to her face. After a while, she looked up at him again. "I'm Rilani," she said. "From the world called Velura. My people. They're almost all gone." Jake sat down across from her. "What happened?" She hesitated. "They were taken by creatures that wore human skin." Jake frowned. "You mean actual humans?" She shook her head. "No. They looked like humans, but their eyes were empty. They took our people. They drank our light." "Light?" Jake asked. "Our energy, our memory, our heart." Jake felt something cold in his chest. Whoever those creatures were, they weren't human, not truly. But they had left a scar deep in Rilani's soul. "I promise," he said. "I'm not like that." Rilani gave him a long, searching look. "I want to believe you." Just then the ship jolted. A warning light flashed on the wall. Proximity alert. Unknown ship approaching. Jake stood fast and ran to the control panel. He tapped the screen. A dark vessel appeared on the scanner. No ID code, no signal, and moving fast. Rilani stared at the screen and gasped. "That's them. They followed me." Jake looked at her. "They're not getting you. Not while you're on my ship." She stared at him, shocked. "You..." You'd protect me? Jake grabbed his tools and turned to face the cargo doors. Yeah, he said, and this time they picked the wrong human. As the enemy ship drew closer, Rilani climbed onto Jake's shoulder and whispered, Maybe I was wrong about humans. Mistrust, she tries to escape the human ship. Rilani hid behind a console near the control room, her tiny heart pounding. The lights in the ship flickered slightly as Jake adjusted the ship's course, trying to outrun the dark vessel that was still following them. He didn't see her slip away. Rilani held her breath. Her hands trembled as she climbed through a small vent that led to the side maintenance shaft. She didn't want to run, but she had to. She didn't trust him, not yet. She had seen kindness before. And it always turned into something else. The monsters that destroyed her world also offered help first. They smiled. They spoke gentle words. Then they stole everything. She couldn't risk it again. Meanwhile, Jake tapped the control screen and sighed. Still on our tail, they're not even trying to hide. He turned around. Rilani? He called. Silence. He frowned. Rilani? He checked the crate. Gone. Inside the narrow shaft, Rilani crawled toward the outer cargo doors. Her tiny feet slipped a few times, but she kept going. She had seen an escape pod earlier when Jake gave her a tour of the ship. It was her only chance. If she could just launch herself away, maybe they'd stop chasing Jake. Maybe she'd draw them away. Maybe he wouldn't get hurt. That thought surprised her. Why did she care if he got hurt? Jake opened a vent panel and shouted, Rilani, where are you? His voice was panicked now. Not angry, just worried. Rilani didn't answer. She was already at the small access point beside the escape pod. The door was almost her height. With some effort, she pulled the lever and the hatch hissed open. A gust of cold air blew in. Her silver hair whipped in the wind. One more step. But before she could move, she heard something, a soft whisper, not Jake's voice, a sound like wind, but it spoke. Little spark. Come home? Her legs froze. That voice. It wasn't from the ship. It was in her mind. She backed up. The whisper came again, louder. No human can protect you. You belong to us. Jake found her just in time. He saw her kneeling in front of the open pod hatch, shaking, staring at nothing. Rilani, he shouted. She didn't move. He rushed forward, knelt beside her, and gently touched her shoulder. She jumped like she had been struck. Her eyes were wide, full of fear. Don't let them take me, she whispered. They're already inside. Jake looked around. The pod door was wide open. The air around them felt colder. Wrong. What happened? He asked. They spoke, not with mouths. They spoke through my fear. Jake gently picked her up. She didn't resist. Back in the control room, Jake wrapped her in a soft cloth and placed her on the console. You don't have to run, he said quietly. I won't let them have you. She looked up at him, voice weak. Why would you risk everything for me? Jake smiled sadly. Because someone has to care, or else we're no better than those monsters. She stared into his eyes, and for the first time she believed him. Later that night, as the ship drifted through deep space under stealth mode, Rilani sat on Jake's shoulder, silent. She broke the quiet with a soft voice. My people have a gift, a memory touch. If I trust someone, I can share my past, not with words, but with feelings. Jake nodded. I'd be honored. She touched his neck gently, and he saw everything, her world, Valura, once full of light, music, laughter. Her family, the ships that came, the false humans, the cold machines. The draining of life, the screams, the fire, the long silence, and her, running alone into the shadows. Jake pulled back, eyes wet. I'm so sorry, Rilani. She looked down. Now you understand why I couldn't trust you. He nodded slowly. But you still stayed. I think I'm starting to believe. Not all humans are monsters. The ship's lights flickered again, and this time, The warning wasn't just on screen. A voice came through the ship's speakers. "We found you. Give us the girl or be erased. Memory traces. Why her people fear. Humans." Jake sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the control panel. The ship was quiet now, but the last message from the unknown enemy still echoed in his mind. "Give us the girl, or be erased." Rilani sat on the console near him, her tiny legs crossed, hands resting in her lap. Her silver hair glowed softly in the light. She had been silent since the warning. So had he. Finally, Jake asked, "Do you remember more about them? The ones that hurt your people?" Rilani looked up, her eyes tired. "Not all of it, only pieces. Sometimes they come in dreams." Jake leaned forward. "Can you show me again? The memory touch?" She nodded. "Only if you want to see it." "I do," he said. "I need to understand." She placed her small hand on his neck. The air around them turned cold. Jake blinked. Suddenly, he was standing in a golden forest. The leaves were blue. The sky was green. The trees sang with soft music. This was Velura, her home. Tiny people like Rilani floated in, the air riding glowing butterflies. They laughed, lived. Then the sky changed, a crack, a sound like thunder. Ships fell from the clouds, dark metal giants with sharp wings. They landed without warning. Black-suited figures walked out. They looked like humans, but their eyes were hollow. No light, no soul. They smiled, but the smile was wrong. Cold. One of them stepped forward and held out a glowing box. The Velurans were curious, so they stepped closer. And that's when the light changed. It turned red. Screams followed. Jake saw Rilani's family running, then burning, then vanishing. She hid inside a flower pod, shaking, as everything around her was taken. The false humans walked calmly, draining the light from her people into long crystal tubes. Then, silence. The memory ended. Jake gasped and pulled back. He was back in the ship now, his hands were shaking. "They weren't just invaders," he whispered. "They wore human faces, but they weren't us." Rilani nodded. "That's why I was afraid. They used your face to kill my people." Jake stood up, fists clenched. "I swear to you, whoever those creatures are, they're not from Earth. We don't do that." Rilani stared at him, uncertain. "But what if other humans helped them?" Jake paused. He hadn't thought of that. He turned back to the control screen and scanned the enemy ship's signal again. Still no ID. No language. Only the message. "Give us the girl." "Why you?" Jake asked. Rilani looked down. "Because I carry something they want. Inside me." "What is it?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But they called me a source. Said I could restore what was lost." Jake frowned. "Restore what?" She stood up and walked slowly across the console. "Long ago, our people were connected. Yours and mine, a shared bond. That bond was broken. Now they want it back." "But by force," Jake said. She nodded. He looked at her. "Then we're not just running anymore. We're going to find out who they really are and stop them." Suddenly, the ship lights dimmed again. Jake grabbed the controls. "They're jamming us." The screen blinked. Another signal came through. But this time, it wasn't a warning. It was an image. A shadowy figure appeared. His face was Jake's. Exactly Jake's. Same eyes, same hair, same voice, but wrong. He smiled. "Hello again, little light," the false Jake said to Rilani. She backed up fast. Jake's eyes widened. "Is that what they look like?" Rilani whispered. "No. That's not what they look like, that's what they steal." Jake clenched his fists. "They copied me." The image spoke again. "We don't want war, only what belongs to us. Return the source, or we will tear your ship apart and take her." Then the screen went dark. Rilani stared at the blank screen. They've changed. They've become smarter. They can copy faces now, voices, memories. Jake nodded. But they can't copy one thing. What? Choice. He stood tall. I choose to protect you. Not because I have to, but because it's right. She looked at him, her eyes glassy. Then you're not like them. Not at all. Outside the ship, the stars shifted, and from behind a moon, 3 more dark vessels appeared, heading straight toward them. The attack! The real enemy boards the ship. The ship shook, hard. Jake grabbed the control panel to steady himself. Rilani flew into his hands and he cupped her gently, protecting her from the sudden impact. Lights across the cockpit turned red. Sirens began to flash. Warning. Hull breach detected. Unknown life form on board. They're inside. Jake said, voice tight. Rilani trembled in his palm. They've come for me. He placed her in his chest pocket carefully. Stay close. I won't let them take you. He picked up his laser wrench. Not meant for fighting, but it was all he had. As he moved through the ship's corridor, Jake heard it. A clicking sound, soft but sharp. Something was crawling along the walls. The air grew colder, heavier, like the oxygen itself didn't want to stay. The lights flickered again. He passed by the storage bay. The door was open, and there it stood. Not quite human. Not quite machine. It had his face, but twisted. Its skin looked smooth, almost plastic. Its eyes were glowing black. The thing smiled. You're protecting the source, aren't you? Jake lifted the wrench. You can copy my face, but not my mind. The creature stepped closer, voice smooth like oil. Give her to us. You'll be rewarded. You'll be remembered. Jake moved into a defensive stance. You already messed up. You made her think humans are monsters, but she's learning. And now, I think she believes in me. The creature tilted its head. Then it attacked. It moved fast, like a shadow in wind. Jake barely dodged the swipe. Sparks flew as claws scraped metal. Jake swung the wrench and hit the thing in the arm. It screamed, but not in pain, in rage. Give her, it hissed. She is not yours. Jake ran down the hall, slamming a door behind him. Computer, seal Section C. Section C sealed. For a second, all was quiet. Jake took Rilani from his pocket. She looked dizzy but alert. I saw it, she whispered. Its soul is hollow. Yeah, Jake said, breathing hard. It wants you. Badly. Rilani placed her hand on his finger. Then I must show you the truth. Again, she sent a memory into his mind, but this time, it wasn't just the past. It was her power. He saw her core, glowing, alive. He saw how her people were once healers, able to transfer memory, energy, and light between beings. Her blood wasn't just valuable. It was ancient technology. The secret to rebuilding connection. To giving minds a soul. Jake gasped as he came back. Rilani was glowing faintly in his hand. I can't fight, she said, but I can help you feel what's real. That's our gift. Jake nodded. Then give me a drop. She blinked. What? Let me carry your light. She hesitated. 1 drop is enough. Any more? It could burn you. I'll take the risk. She bit her own hand gently. 1 silver drop of glowing blood appeared. Jake touched it. It vanished into his skin. And suddenly, everything changed. He stood taller. He felt calm, stronger, his mind filled with clarity, like he could see the path before it even happened. When the creature broke through the next door, Jake was already moving. He dodged the claws. He struck with precision. He spoke not with anger but with truth. She is not your prize. She is a person. And I am her shield. The creature screamed, and then began to dissolve. The light in Jake's body had burned through its copy blood. It fell to the floor and vanished into dust. Silence. The ship hummed again. Lights returned, to white. Rilani sat in Jake's palm, looking up at him in awe. You held my energy and it didn't destroy you. Jake smiled. Felt like drinking a lightning storm. She laughed. You're not like other humans. Jake sat down on the floor, breathing hard. No, and you're not like any alien I've ever met. Suddenly, the ship's computer beeped. Incoming message. Earth command. Urgent. Jake's smile faded. They know about you now. The refuge. She meets real humans for the first time. The Earth command signal flashed on the screen, bright and urgent. Jake hesitated, his hand hovering over the accept button. Rilani stood on the console, looking unsure. Do they know I'm here? She asked. Jake nodded. They probably traced the energy from your blood. That last fight lit up every scanner across this sector. She looked down. Will they be like you? Jake hesitated. I hope so. He pressed the button. The screen blinked, then showed a woman in uniform, short brown hair, sharp eyes. Calm voice. Pilot Jake Marshall, this is Commander Aaron Chase of Earth Station Omega. We saw your signal spike and the unknown enemy. Are you injured? Jake replied, No, but I'm not alone. He gently picked up Rilani and lifted her into view. Commander Chase blinked. Is that real? Jake nodded. Her name is Rilani. She's not a threat. She's the reason I'm still alive. There was a pause. Then the commander said, Dock at Station Omega. We need to talk in person. 2 hours later, Jake's ship floated toward a massive silver space station. Thousands of lights blinked across its surface. Docking arms reached out like welcoming hands. Inside the ship, Rilani paced nervously on the table. What if they try to take me? Lock me up? Jake crouched beside her. I won't let that happen, just stay close to me. She nodded and climbed into his chest pocket again. The docking bay hissed open. Humans stood in neat rows, guards, scientists, and officers. All stared as Jake walked down the ramp. Commander Chase stepped forward. Where is she? She asked. Jake opened his pocket gently. Rilani stepped out and stood in his palm. She looked around at the humans, the tall walls, the metal ceiling. So many eyes. So much attention. She trembled a little. But then something happened. A young scientist in the crowd dropped to one knee. She matches the scroll, he whispered. What scroll? Commander Chase asked. The man stood and pointed to a small tablet. This, he said, pulling up an ancient image, one that had been passed down through Earth colonies for generations. It showed a glowing figure, tiny, silver-haired, eyes like stars, a protector of peace. She's real, the scientist whispered. The memory keeper, the one who heals the forgotten. The room went silent. And then slowly, other humans knelt too. Not out of worship, but respect. Rilani's voice trembled. You know me? Commander Chase nodded. We don't know much, but we always believed your people existed. We thought they were legends. Jake smiled. She's more than legend, she's a fighter. Later, in a quiet room, Rilani sat on a soft pillow as scientists gently scanned her energy. No wires, no needles, just light. Jake watched closely. Commander Chase entered. We've discovered something, she said. The enemy ship that attacked. It's one of many. We've been tracking them for years. They're not human. They're called the Nullborn. Rilani flinched. They wore your face. Yes, Chase said. Because they were made from us. Grown in labs, long ago. For war. Jake's eyes widened. You mean Earth created them? Not Earth, she replied. A secret group. They lost control. Now those creatures think they're the next step in evolution, but they can't feel, they can't create, they can only steal. Rilani whispered. That's why they want me. My blood gives memory. Connection. Commander Chase nodded. Exactly. And now they'll come for more. That night, Rilani stood by a large viewing window, looking out at the stars. Jake stood beside her. "I never thought humans would kneel for me," she said softly. "You're more than what they feared," Jake replied. "You're what they hoped for." She looked at him. "Do you think maybe our people were meant to meet again?" Jake smiled. "Not meant. Chosen." She turned to him, her small eyes glowing gently. "Then I choose to trust you." In the far edge of the galaxy, a null-born warship lit its engines. Inside, a dark copy of Rilani stared out the window and whispered, "The original has found an anchor. It's time to tear it away." The choice. She offers her power to the human. The light inside Earth Station Omega flickered once. Jake felt it. A small shift in the air, like something cold had entered the room. He stood in the command deck beside Rilani. She was quiet, watching the data scroll across the screen. A fleet of null-born ships was approaching fast. Their signal wasn't hidden. It was loud, bold, a message of fear. Commander Chase spoke, voice steady. "They're not just coming for her. They're coming for all of us now." Rilani looked up. "Because they know I'm not running anymore." Jake turned to her. "We'll hold the station. We'll fight if we have to." Rilani hesitated, then stepped into his palm. "I don't want to fight anymore," she said softly. "I want to connect. And there's only one way left." Jake looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I can give you part of my core," she whispered. "Not just my memory or energy, but the part that awakens others, the part that once joined human minds, with ours before the connection was broken." Jake frowned. "What would that do to me?" "You'd feel everything," she said. "Every thought, every fear, every hope. Not just from me, but from anyone you bond with. It's how we once built peace, shared pain, ended lies." Jake stood silent, then asked, "And what happens to you?" "I'll lose part of my spark," she said. "But it will live in you. And if we do it right, it can spread, like a light, a memory passed from one person to the next." Jake knelt, bringing her to eye level. "If I say yes, we stop fighting their way." Rilani nodded. "And start healing." He didn't hesitate. "I choose it." Rilani stepped forward and placed her tiny hands on Jake's chest. Her body began to glow, silver and blue. Warm light flowed through his shirt, into his skin, into his heart. Jake gasped as he felt something shift inside him, like a door opening, like music in silence. He closed his eyes, and suddenly, he felt everything. Memories flooded in, not just Rilani's, but ancient ones. Humans and Valurans walking together in glowing cities, holding hands, sharing thoughts without words, laughing, crying, remembering together. Then, the breaking, the nullborn, the betrayal. But even after all that, the bond still lived. In her. Now, in him. Jake opened his eyes, and they were glowing silver. The crew around him stepped back in awe. Commander Chase whispered, "What? What are you?" Jake stood slowly, voice calm and full. "A bridge." Suddenly, alarms blared. The nullborn had arrived. Dark ships filled the station's screen. Their leader, the false Rilani, taller, twisted, hollow-eyed, appeared. "You stole what was broken," it hissed. "Return the source, or fall." Jake stepped forward, energy glowing in his veins. "We didn't steal anything. We restored it," the nullborn growled. "You cannot stop us. We are beyond fear." Jake smiled. "That's your problem. You feel nothing. But now, we feel everything." He touched the console, and something strange happened. Every human in the room blinked. Then, felt warmth, memories, laughter, grief, hope, Rilani's light flowed through them all. Just a glimpse. Enough to understand. Enough to unite. As the Nullborn began to fire, Jake raised his hand, and a shield of pure memory pulsed around the station. Not metal, not force. Connection. The enemy's weapons bent and cracked, unable to break through. The false Rilani screamed. "You cannot win, you are weak." Jake's voice echoed across space. "We're strong enough to carry each other. That's real power." The Nullborn ships cracked. One by one they began to turn, glitching, shaking. Some exploded, but some stopped, frozen, and then drifted away, silent, empty, like they had finally remembered who they were. Back inside, Rilani collapsed slightly. Jake caught her in both hands. "You gave too much," he said. She smiled weakly. "No, I gave enough." As light returned to the stars, Jake looked at the last remaining Nullborn vessel, still watching, and whispered, "Come and see what it means to feel the bond. You were never the monster." The battle was over. Outside Earth Station Omega, the stars were calm again. Wreckage floated silently where the Nullborn fleet had once stood strong. Many of their ships had turned and left. Others had been destroyed when they could not accept the light. Inside the station, Jake sat beside the large window, holding Rilani gently in his hands. She was resting, breathing slow and soft, her silver glow now faint. He had never seen someone give so much of themselves for others. "Still with me?" he asked. Her tiny eyes blinked open. "I am," she whispered. "And so are you." Jake smiled. His body still felt strange, stronger, warmer, more aware. He could sense the emotions of everyone nearby, not hear their thoughts, but feel them, like soft waves. Hope, peace, even grief but shared. "I'm not the same," he said. "You were never meant to stay the same," she replied. He looked out at the stars. "What happens now?" Commander Chase entered the room. "You're awake," she said, nodding at Rilani. "We both are," Jake replied. Chase stepped closer. "We've confirmed it. Some of the Nullborn turned off their systems. It's like part of them woke up. Something inside changed." Jake nodded. "Maybe for the first time, they felt something real." Chase handed Jake a small device. "We want to send your signal out further, to the edge of the galaxy, maybe even beyond. That link between you and Rilani, it could heal more than we know." Jake looked down at Rilani. "Only if she agrees." Rilani smiled. "It was never just my gift. It's ours now." Later that day, Jake walked through the refugee section of the station. People were hugging, smiling. Some had tears, but they cried together. A small child ran up and pointed at Rilani on Jake's shoulder. "Is that the alien who saved us?" Jake knelt. "Her name is Rilani," the girl waved. "Hi, Rilani." Rilani smiled. "Hello, little one." The girl looked up at Jake. "She's not scary at all." Jake nodded. She never was. That evening, Jake and Rilani sat under the clear dome at the top of the station. Above them, stars danced quietly. Jake looked at her. "When you first saw me, you said, 'Please don't eat me, human.'" Rilani laughed softly. "I thought you were a monster." Jake smiled. "I was the one afraid, Rilani. Afraid of being alone, of failing, of never mattering." She touched his neck gently. "You were never the monster." He looked at her, and neither were you. In the far distance, in a quiet part of space, a single Nullborn unit floated. No orders, no signal, only silence. It touched the memory code that Jake and Rilani had sent across the stars, and for the first time, it cried. Final scene. Months later, Jake stood beside Rilani in a peaceful garden, growing on the outer shell of Earth Station Omega. Humans and Valuran refugees worked together, planting, laughing, building a new future. Children ran past, some with small glowing pets, others holding handmade pictures of Rilani. A voice from the intercom spoke. Incoming message from Velura 3. Connection stable. The colony is ready for Phase 2. Jake turned to Rilani. Are you ready to go home? She nodded, her eyes bright. As long as I'm not going alone. He held out his hand. She stepped onto his palm. Together, they turned toward the docking bay. No longer strangers. No longer afraid. Not a protector and a victim. But equals. Friends. Family. She once said, "Please don't eat me, human." But in the end, he gave her something far greater than safety. He gave her trust.